Well, hello, it's that time again, and welcome to another one of my dental business transaction podcasts. And I have great pleasure in inviting Eddie Crouch back to talk to us for what I suppose is like a spring watch. How do you feel about that, Eddie? The spring watch with Eddie?
Well, yeah. I mean, we had an incredible month last month, didn't we? Where it didn't rain at all, but it's making up for it this month. Well, I'm not sure it's spring watch in May, is it really?
No,
but I mean, it's been cold and it's been wet.
I know. You know, you think of spring as all the little lambs and everything coming out, but I don't know. How are your animal husbandry skills, Eddie, on this?
Yeah, well, we went out walking yesterday in the Warwickshire countryside. We saw quite a lot of spring lambs. We also saw an awful lot of rain.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. So obviously it's great to catch up with you again, and so much has happened since we last spoke, and I appreciate your time talking to me. So let's kick off with return to business at the BDA. How's it going?
Well, we've surveyed all our committees to see how they want to go forward with their meetings, and no surprise at all, because so many people have got into the rhythm of meeting remotely, and because for a lot of people who travel from all parts of the country down to London to meet, many of those committees seem to want to continue with some of that arrangement for their meetings going forward. I mean, many people miss the face-to-face and the social aspect of meeting up with people, and I'm pretty sure that every single one of our committees will continue to meet in that way, but certainly not in the frequency that they were meeting pre-pandemic. I think what we're going to do is have a hybrid arrangement where certain meetings are face-to-face and certain meetings are remote in the way that we've all got used to in the last 18 months. But I think, as regards to reopening the building, the staff have been surveyed. Many of those have quite enjoyed not having to commute into central London on a daily basis. A lot of those members of staff obviously miss the communal aspect of meeting up with their colleagues and having that discussion over a cup of coffee and things like that. So again, I think both the staff and both of the committee structures within the BDA are going to adapt to this new world that we've now created post-pandemic. Hopefully post-pandemic, with the numbers of people being vaccinated and things. Let's hope that we don't go backwards. We're talking on a day where the pubs and the restaurants are thankfully beginning to open up again, and that's all good news. And certainly from a business point of view, the use of the facilities at the BDA in Wimpole Street are really important to us from an economic point of view. It generates income into the BDA, which helps us subsidise our activities and reduce the amount that we charge our members. Yeah,
absolutely. I just hope that people are sensible, and still take necessary precautions. But there we go. No, that's all sounds it's good, and I agree with everything you say, especially with this remote meetings. Yes, it's good to see people, but you can get through so much more work by cutting out a lot of that and the travelling involved, but that's all good. Now, one of the subjects to talk about today is about remote orthodontics, because I understand last week the GDC made a statement about remote orthodontics being done on the high street. Mm-hmm. So tell me all.
Well, I'm not sure I can tell you all, but I think probably what's happened is that a lot of colleagues have been really quite annoyed about the difference that's there from them providing modern aligner treatments in their practice and those on the high street that appear to be able to do it at a very much reduced price in comparison to what they can deliver in their practice. And the business model for that, where perhaps patients are taking impressions of their own teeth and sending them in and getting a series of liners made and not having face-to-face consultations with professionals, or even just walking into a high street location and having a scan by a dental care professional and not having that sort of discussion with a clinician about the treatment options, or even having a proper dental examination to ensure that they're suitable for that treatment, has been something that the profession has been quite annoyed about. And certainly the BDA has raised over the last 2 years at least concerns about patient safety, about that delivery of model. and about whether it's fair that some of these locations perhaps are not registered with the CQC, and the difference in really how many of the profession want to deliver care for their patients, and how these new business models are being developed by other companies. And thankfully, the GDC did come out last week with a step in the right direction. They're now saying that the clinicians involved with delivering these services need to be minded by their obligations under the GDC regulations, and about whether they are doing the right thing for their patients. And I think this will lead on to the recognition that obviously this is modern delivery of dentistry, and therefore the CQC need to be involved. They need to be going into these premises to make sure that patient safety is the top priority. And from that point of view, we must be encouraged that the GDC is moving in the right direction. We probably want the GDC to do more than that, but at least they're moving in the right direction and listening to the arguments that we've put forward. Good.
It makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, from a layperson's point of view, and this is just a very small example, but when my son played rugby, you had two options to get a gum shield. You either get something online and you just stuff it in and put it in a cup of hot water and it molds, or you go and see your dentist and you have one professionally fitted. And I know which one absolutely makes sense, because these things can do more harm than good if they're ill-fitting, and they can they can hurt you. And that's on a very simple level. But the danger is having this walk-in booths with all this scanning, but as you say, is it the right treatment? So I'm really pleased to hear that it's coming under the spotlight.
Yeah, and I think from a clinician's point of view, I mean, patients don't comply with the way that they should wear these. And so, having that face-to-face meeting with the patient and seeing how they're getting on with the treatment, and making sure that you intervene at the right time as a clinician if the patient isn't progressing in the way that you would anticipate, it is very important. So it means that patients don't suffer irreparable damage. I've seen examples in my own practice where patients have turned up where things have gone wrong with this delivery of care, and to be honest, really they weren't dentally fit to start that treatment in the first place. They should have been examined by a dentist to actually say, I'm sorry, at the moment you need to get this sorted out, you need to get your gum disease sorted out before you start anything like that. And the marketing for these companies is very aggressive. It's hard now to go through a TV program without seeing some of these adverts on your TV on a regular basis. And when it's promoted to patients as being a cheap alternative, I'm glad that at least the risks have been out there and highlighted.
No, I agree. I see it all the time, especially with these cheap tooth whitening options. It terrifies me, frankly. And I say to friends, they say, I'm going to buy that. It's really, absolutely don't do that. Go and see your dentist, pay a bit more and get an expert. Because you're the guys left at the end of it all, aren't you? Putting them straight at the end of it all. Oh, well, that's interesting.
And there are some things to put right, for sure.
I'm bloody right. I'm sure there is. Interesting. Okay. The other subject was consultation, the recent health regulations, consultation on health regulations by the Department of Health. Tell me about that.
Well, it's quite important. It's going to have a significant change, really, to the way that first of all, we one of the consultations is about whether we're going to have a unification of regulators. And from our point of view, we've always been keen that whilst we've had issues with the GDC, to have a regulator that actually knows something about dentistry is important to us. And, having it merge with a bigger regulator would be something that we'd be concerned about. But some of the consultation and the modernisation of regulation, certainly I would encourage the profession to look out for this consultation and actually make their own contributions to their thoughts back to the Department of Health on this consultation, because there are things in there that are not clear. One of the things, for example, with regarding the enhanced role of a dental case examiner, and whether we could argue that if we have less fitness to practice cases, from a cost-effective point of view, that's good. It means that many colleagues are not waiting around for a judgment in a fitness to practice case for a long period of time because of the backlog in those. And if they can be resolved amicably between the registrant and the GDC at an early stage, then that's a good thing. But if that case examiner has the ability to actually suspend a colleague or remove that colleague from the register, then that is a step in a direction that I think would cause some concern with the profession. And I was at a meeting last week with the GDC where we were discussing this consultation, and there were some reassurances that came there from the GDC, in as much as that if the case examiner came up with a conclusion to the investigation that wasn't agreed with by the person who's having the complaint made against them, it would still give that person the option of actually going through to a full fitness to practice case. And that's reassuring, because what we wouldn't want is a paper-based process actually potentially ruining the career of a professional, and that's not right.
Good. Goodness me, there's been quite a lot happening, hasn't there? EDI. And for the uninitiated, can you explain what those letters stand for? And I know it's a very topical subject right now.
It is, yeah. I mean, lots of organisations. I mean, there was a paper produced recently by the Office of the Chief Dental Officer about equality, diversity and inclusion. And this year has seen the formation of a new committee at the BDA, the EDI committee, the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Committee. We've got two chairs of that committee, co-chairs. Laura Cross, who's a member of a Scottish member of the PEC, and Sharina Ilias, who's a London member of the PEC. Very, very important piece of work. We've got elections coming up at the BDA in the new year. Right. At the end of this year, we extended our triennium. We normally have elections every 3 years, but we extended it because of the pandemic. And all of our committees are up for election from January, and it's important that the profession is actually represented by committees that actually look like the profession that they're representing. And so for us, it's very important that equality and diversity, not only within the BDA but across the profession, is actually dealt with in a professional manner. And we're working alongside the Faculty of General Dental Practice on some joint projects with that. We've done some surveys about racism within dentistry, and recently we had quite an interesting Hospital Dentist Day, where we had a variety of speakers speaking on EDI issues, where it was quite shocking to hear some of the things that are still happening out there, with patients actually refusing to see clinicians because of their race or because of their colour, or people who feel that their career progression is being affected by their colour or race, and that's just or their sexuality or their gender, and that's just something that in a modern world seems totally inappropriate.
There is no place for it. It's very depressing to think, isn't it? In what one thinks is an educated environment, there is still this going on, but unfortunately it is, and it's good that it's being stamped out, it's being addressed.
I mean, obviously we had the terrible issue that prompted Black Lives Matter during the last year, and I watched the FA Cup final on Saturday, and the players still taking a knee, and really, as far as dentistry is concerned, it's still an issue where the number of Afro-Caribbean entrants to a dental school is still phenomenally low in comparison to the population of the UK now, and I know the dental schools are taking that very seriously, and I think across dentistry the whole issue of equality, diversity and inclusion is incredibly important, and I think will dominate a lot of work that we do at the BDA over a long period of time. But certainly at the moment we're focusing on one or two issues. carrying out surveys of members. We're giving some members an opportunity to compile diaries within their working week. But it's wrong when you look around the hierarchy within dentistry, and sadly, you still see faces that are not completely representative of the profession that we now are.
Yeah. Well, good. We'll pick up on this next time we speak, because I'll be really interested to hear how it's going and what results I've had in. And how long have you been doing the questionnaire that you've been sending out, for people? How long has that been in place?
We carried out a racism study over the end part of last year and over the Christmas period, and some of that data is now being analysed. In fact, we've got a work stream on Wednesday where we're meeting again to actually look at how we tease out some of the information that's come in from members on that and what further work that we need to do. So, it's very much in its fledgling stage, but, a huge opportunity to do good things for the profession and delivery of care for patients.
Brilliant. Good. Well, keep me posted, and that's very good work. So what's keeping you really busy at the moment with regards to any commitments that you have to meetings, presentations? Are you getting out much in front of people in person, per se? I know we touched on it earlier. And
no, not at the moment. A lot of the things I'm doing at the moment is still via a PC camera and something along these lines. But I'm hoping that by the autumn I'm able to start meeting colleagues on a face-to-face basis and actually do more of the work. I mean, one of the things that the profession are probably quite interested in at the moment is the arrangements that are going to be there post-pandemic. And I know the target that's been set by NHS England for the first 6 months of this financial year is still a hot topic for a lot of people. We've got end of year reconciliation for people who had 2 months from the end of March to actually submit all their forms and claims into NHS England. They're still worried about the number of practices that are going to suffer financial penalty by not hitting targets in that period from Christmas to the end of March. I think we're pleased that the last letter that came out from NHS England and the Office of the Chief Dental Officer indicated that there was a more rapid sort of commitment to actually change away from the UDA contract. We've had 10 years of piloting and prototyping. We don't seem to have been making much progress on that. And I think there is no role post-pandemic for a UDA contract for very long, because it's clear that it doesn't work very well. I think the profession, and you're probably seeing this yourself, Lily, is looking perhaps longer term not to have a commitment to the NHS. I know many people are telling me at members of staff at the BDA that the volume of inquiries they're now getting from members about how they see their future outside the NHS going forward is far higher than it used to be. And I think if the NHS get this wrong with this next reform of contract and they don't bring the profession with them, I seriously worry about the volume of dentists that actually want to work in the NHS longer term. Yeah,
it presents another whole set of challenges for everybody, doesn't it? Of course. There's some very big issues here at stake and being discussed, isn't it? I think the contract reform is a really, really hot topic for a lot of people as well. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that rolls out. From our perspective, we are not seeing at the moment that many practices that people are either coming to buy and saying, I don't want NHS. Because the demand for fully private has been very strong now for a couple of years. It's much greater than it ever was. And of course, if you're thinking of selling a practice, this is the wrong time to ditch your NHS contract. You need to look at the 5-year plan. But it's something that we're going to be watching very closely. And obviously, I appreciate these updates, and we'll be watching it to see how it affects valuations in the market and the appetite to buy and to sell. So I can't report at the moment that we are seeing a spike in that of people wishing to jump off the NHS train. But it's certainly, if things don't go people's way, they're going to be wanting out of this, and they're just going to be bringing in plan payment because it doesn't make sense to them.
Yeah, I think that the conversations I've been having with some of the plan providers, their targets that they were setting themselves are being exceeded far quicker than they anticipated, which is interesting in itself. And I had someone last week talking to me who had two contracts of about £500,000 each, asking the question of these plan providers, how do I go about actually transitioning my practice away from the NHS? And that really is quite a surprise. But one question to you, Lily. I mean, I know we had a conversation, during the pandemic about the hold-up in practice sales that was there from the CQC. Are you seeing now much more streamlined work from the CQC in assisting practice sales, or is that still an ongoing issue for you?
I would say it's a work in progress, but we have seen a softening. We have seen progress. I had one last week which was disappointing, a completion that should have happened, and we still hadn't had the final last piece of the chain happening, but it was in London. Obviously you're looking at a huge population there, and that's where one of the largest backlogs are in all these major conurbations. That's where you're going to see it. But overall, no, it is better, it's improving, but we're by no means out of the woods. But thank you for asking.
No, I know it was a major issue. I tried my best to actually chivvy along the CQC. They made promises, obviously, that the workforce involved in this was going to be improved, and hopefully for people who are trying to sell practices at the moment, it's an improving situation rather than worse.
It is improving, as I say, but obviously we realise that it's a huge beast to turn around. You doesn't happen overnight. But obviously we are watching it. But I'll be able to let you know next time we have a chat. Maybe we'll have a summer watch if we get a summer. Mind you, we're nearly there, aren't we? But it's always good to have these catch-ups about the industry and what's happening. So on a personal front, have you got any more television interviews, any more media like that lined up to see your smiling face on the screen, Eddie? Have you got any?
Well, I mean, the demand for that has diminished a lot. I mean, we were involved with the Orthodontics story last week, and it was covered on Sky, but I ended up on the cutting floor there, sadly. I've got quite a lot of radio interest at the moment about obviously the return to normality. There's been quite a lot there going on about how difficult it is to get in to see practitioners. There's been a lot of coverage in the last few days really about how difficult it is to get in to see your GP, and obviously many practices at the moment are still not functioning anywhere near in the manner that they were pre-pandemic. In fact, one of the practices I was at this morning working, they're still not doing routine inspections there. They're still coping with the backlog. And I know that varies a lot from practice to practice, but from a patient point of view, I think the CQC are actually coming out with a report in the next few days about how difficult it's been for patients to actually gain access to dentistry. One of the encouraging things in the draft of the report that I've seen is that the CQC are very much on the message that perhaps the actual budget that's been allocated for dentistry seriously needs looking at for that to improve in the short term. Many areas of the NHS have seen additional funding to cope with the problems that COVID has produced. We need to see that in dentistry as well.
Good. Well, that's good. Eddie, thank you for joining me again today, and keep up the hard work. I think that I can speak on behalf of a lot of people that they very much support everything that you and the BDA do on their behalf. It's really good to have someone fighting the corner, so to speak. Have a great rest of the week, and I'll look forward to speaking to you again very soon. So thank you again.
Thank you, Lily, and thanks for talking to me again.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Eddie.